It is much colder everywhere. Goodbye.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's Thursday night, and this is Farage at Large, live from Newcastle. Please welcome your host, Nigel Farage.
Yes, once again we've got a live Farage at Large outside broadcast. We're here in Newcastle, the friendliest part of the country. We've got an amazing show for you. We're going to start off with local lad, Brexiteer TV presenter Darren Grimes. We're then going to have Super Mac, Newcastle United legend, Malcolm McDonald. And then, well, who else? But from Geordie Shore, we've got Scotty T. And of course, Cal, the voice of God. But before all of that, let's get the news. See you in a minute.
Good evening, Newcastle, and good evening to you as well. Well, our top story on GB News tonight. The Albanian Prime Minister has denied many of the migrants crossing the English Channel into the UK are from Albania, saying it's simply not true. Edi Rama was speaking from Chatham House in London this afternoon after talks with the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, inside number 10 Downing Street, talking about tackling the small boats crisis. Mr Rama had criticised the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, for referring people from his country as criminals, describing those comments as disgraceful.
There's a lot of confusion, and there is also a lot of speculation about the data, because it's not simply not true that all these people come from Albania. This is theoretically impossible, arithmetically impossible, and factually not true. They are Albanians that come also from other countries, mainly Greece.
Well, here the Northern Ireland Secretary has told Stormont leaders there's no negotiating the Windsor Framework and it will become law. Chris Heaton-Harris has been holding talks over the Prime Minister's post-Brexit trade deal at Hillsborough Castle. That's after a key element of the EU-UK agreement, known as the Stormont Break, was overwhelmingly passed in the House of Commons yesterday. DUP leader Sir Geoffrey Donaldson described the Windsor Framework as a sticking plaster that won't work, which the Northern Ireland Secretary disputed. Parliament has banned the Chinese-owned social media app TikTok from all government devices. It follows security concerns from the House of Commons and Lords, but won't include personal devices. Scotland has followed suit, with its Deputy First Minister saying the ban will be implemented immediately. It comes as TikTok's chief executive has faced questions in the US Congress over data security and user safety. The Labour leader has released the amount of tax he's paid on his income and capital gains in the last 2 years. Sir Keir Starmer says he's paid £118,580 in tax since the start of 2021. That's after the Prime Minister published his tax documents yesterday, which showed he paid more than £1 million in tax over the last 3 years. And lastly, the Bank of England today raised the interest rate for the 11th time in a row from 4 percentage points to 4.25%. That's in a bid to slow down the rising cost of living. The central bank's also announced it expects the economy to grow slightly in the second quarter, revising a previous forecast that it would contract. On TV, online, DAB Plus radio and on the TuneIn app. You're with GB News, the People's Channel. Let's go live now to Newcastle for Farage.
Well, we're in the northeast of England. Where else could we be with a reception like this? I've always said it. This is, without doubt, the friendliest part of England. It always has been, and I believe that it always will be. But it's a part of England that, ever since the end of the First World War, has been pretty rock-solid Labour. Labour through generations. And I think the Labour Party began to take the North East for granted. You know, they put a Miller band in South Shield, somebody with absolutely no connection to the area at all. Mr Blair, of course, was the MP for Sedgefield for many, many years. And really, I mean, top of the pops, in terms of Labour taking the mickey, was Peter Mandelson was put into Hartlepool. I mean, you couldn't make it up. And actually, I think the people in the North East began to feel they were being taken for granted. I think they began to feel that the attitudes and views of those in London were very different to their own. No more so, of course, than when it came to the Brexit vote, where Labour found themselves hopelessly adrift from many of their voters. As a result of that, in the 2019 general election, Boris Johnson, who was then very popular, not quite so much these days, I don't think, but suddenly we finish up in the North East with Labour having 18 seats, with the Conservatives having 11. There's going to be a general election next year. Can the Conservatives hold on to those seats, or are the pollsters right in thinking nearly all of them could swing back to the Labour Party? Well, none of us know the answers to that, but one man who is a proper North Easter, grew up in Consett, was a young Liberal until he had his Damascene conversion and became a Brexiteer, is Darren Grimes, who's now also, of course, a presenter on GB News. You make that commute down to London to do it, and you've got a new show starting with us in a couple of weeks' time.
Absolutely. Well, this Saturday, actually, at 8 o'clock. It's going to be called the Saturday Five, and we're going to discuss the craziest stories of the week as a panel, left and right. and debate the issues of the day, Nigel. So I cannot wait to get stuck in.
Well, good luck with that. I have to say, if you want crazy stories, all you need's the truth. It really is very difficult. I mean, today we had Keir Starmer saying he's going to halve violent crime against women and girls and do all these amazing things. This, the same Keir Starmer, who signed a letter to stop 50 Jamaican criminals from being deported, 7 of whom reoffended. I mean, Darren, I think that confidence in both of the parties has really sunk over the course of the last few years. But you're a North East lad. A lot of these constituencies, I mean, take Bishop Auckland in County Durham, seats that the Conservatives had never won before. Are they going to lose them all?
Do you know, it's interesting because, Nigel, I actually put you as the bellwether of how I knew that seats in the North East were going to change. Because when all of my family really started to vote UKIP, right, and they started to say, look, UKIP's for me, it's the first time that a tribally Labour family, and it's not just isolated to the family, I'm sure there are many former Labour voters or current here today. And then suddenly, you know, people start asking questions. Why am I being taxed so highly only to be given it back in benefits and all the rest of it, when actually reforming the system to say you keep more of your own money? People thought, well, I quite like those ideas, actually, of not getting it back from the state and actually keeping more of my own money.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I was the gateway drug.
You were,
in a sense, you know, that people left Labour and they found it quite easy on that basis to vote for Boris. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I see a lot of issues here that really interest me. If you look at the newspapers, the ULEZ extension, Mayor Khan's ULEZ extension, huge coverage in the newspapers. What nobody ever talks about is the fact that these charging schemes, these congestion zones, is happening here in Newcastle and Gateshead too, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I've heard from people saying, I'm really worried about the fact that Newcastle is going to be decimated by these charges, where drivers just say, I cannot afford to come through to Newcastle. So people start going to the Metro Centre and other places, which is a big shopping centre. And I think that's going to have real consequences in people's pockets. Now, these people aren't rich, right? If you're driving a taxi or a heavy goods vehicle,
or
you're not...
a delivery van.
Absolutely, whatever it might be. And they're talking about the expansion of these schemes because, Nigel, you know as well as I do, once a council starts to realise it can make money from pinching from people's pockets, they don't stop doing it, right? No. They like to expand it to get as much as they possibly can. That would be ruinous for the North East at a time when we're seeing investment come through. The North East is actually doing all right as far as investment's concerned. So
levelling up, this phrase levelling up that Michael Gove and Boris use, I've been struggling to work out what levelling up actually means. A bit of audience reaction. How many people here know what levelling up actually means? Good. It's not just me then. I mean, these bizarre sort of academic phrases. But you're saying money is coming into the North?
It is, yeah. And
but so what, government money or private money?
Well, it's taxpayer money, ultimately, yes. And I think Liz Truss actually had the right idea, Nigel, where she was proposing actually there would be investment zones where private money would come in, because ultimately that's what's going to create jobs for people in this region. And people cry out, you know, I've got 2 brothers, one of them works in a factory, one of them works in retail in the North East. They're crying out for higher paid jobs and opportunities. So many, you hear that ad nauseum up here in the North East. So we really need to unleash the private sector.
Don't you think the truth of it is that the North East is still a bit ignored by London?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you've just hit the nail on the head there when you said that the clean air zones that are taking place in here aren't discussed in Westminster whatsoever, because what happens to the North East doesn't matter ultimately, because the politicians don't spend most of their time in the North East of England.
A few months ago, I was in Sunderland. Now, whether I'm allowed to say that here, I'm not sure. Oh, dear. But it was really interesting just talking to folk. They were so angry that the social housing waiting list was as long as it was. Their kids and grandkids can't get homes, can't get on the ladder in any way at all. And yet they were seeing Sunderland, you know, lots and lots of migrant hotels, young men that across the channel. It's the same here in Newcastle, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And County Durham, I mean, County Durham's opening a new detention centre for migrants to actually hold migrants. I mean, there are countless numbers. You know, you walk around Newcastle and see the homelessness, frankly, on the streets of Newcastle, and you think, what are we doing for our own people up here, as opposed to those who are illegally entering Britain. I think it's a damn disgrace, to be honest with you, Nigel, and I'm pretty certain that most of the people in the northeast of England hold that view. Hard-working people that go out and have to spend so much of their own cash in taxes just to fund hotels for those that come here illegally. It's not on.
Darren Grimes, final thought. In 2004, there was a referendum in the North East as to whether to have a North East Assembly, a North East Parliament, effectively. And the people of the North East said to the people in London, well, I won't actually say what they said, but I think you know what the message was. Yet now, the Conservatives are going to bring in a super mayor for the whole of the North East. None of these people have been asked about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. But £4 billion in extra taxpayer cash for the region to actually... connectivity, for example. You come from my part of County Durham and try to get into Newcastle. If you don't drive, Nigel, well, you're up a creek without a paddle. That's all I can say.
Well, I tell you what, the North East will get its mayor.
We need the money, we need the investment.
Whether it gets its £4 billion, we'll have to wait and see. In a moment, I'll talk to the voice of God who introduces me at all of these events, and I'll talk to Supermac. All of that after the break.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are... those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway...
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Now, when we come out and do these events, I'm always introduced, good evening, it's Thursday night, we're in Bognor Regis or wherever we are, and the voice of God is the one and only Cal Halbert. Cal, I've heard your voice. I've done about 30 of these shows around the country.
Yeah.
We've not met before. You know, you've been living here all your adult life.
Yep.
And yet, your pronunciation doesn't sound very Geordie to me. What's going on?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Nigel. The thing is that because I do so many voiceovers, my accent has to be quite neutral. But get me a few Newcastle Browns, I turn very Geordie indeed. And the thing is, when you have a few beers, you can only really talk Geordie or drunk. And I think they're both Latin-based, if I'm totally honest with you. I think they're both the same. But yeah, but my accent floats all over the shop, so it does float. So brought them in the Midlands up here now.
So you do voiceovers.
Yeah.
You do comedy.
Yep.
You do impressions.
I do. My voting record was all down to... Because I didn't vote on political agenda, I voted on whose voice I could do. That was my voting record.
So, come on, who have you got?
Well, it was, first of all, Tony Blair, who, of course, would smile and go, great job, yeah. And then you've got Ed Miliband, who had...
That's good.
Sounded like
That's good.
he had a cold, and in fact, if you sneeze as Ed Miliband, it's Tony Blair, same guy. Great. And then Boris was, of course, great. To impersonate. Remember to, if you're making a cup of tea, to leave the tea bag in, unless, of course, taking it out. Yes, great. And then, obviously, in the States, you've got the Donald, the great guy of yours. Believe me. Totally great. Great guy. I know Nigel is a great guy. Totally great. Totally great. Stormy Daniels, the only person to go down more than Sunderland. Believe me, I think that's great.
Oh, dear. You know, I just knew. Coming to the North East, I get into trouble. If anyone's offended, we're sorry. But, Cal, seriously, comedy.
Yeah.
People I talk to, stand-up comedians, getting harder and harder to tell jokes about subjects, people being cancelled everywhere, having their careers ruined. You know, you go out for a comedy night. I mean, how do you work out where the line is, or is it always changing?
It's always changing, no matter where you are. You've got to take into consideration the strongholds. If you're in a Conservative stronghold, of course, you're not going to go against the Tories. You're not going to do anti-Labour stuff in the North East as a general rule. So you do have to have a little bit of knowledge in that sort of thing. But the truth of the matter is anything topical you can go for. And I strongly agree with what Ricky Gervais said, is that people need to stop saying jokes are offensive, because jokes aren't offensive. You are offended at that joke, but the joke is not offensive.
Right.
I personally believe you can make a joke about anything so long as it's funny. That's the form.
So that's the acid test.
Yeah. It has to be funny.
If it's funny, you can get away with murder, yeah?
I believe so, yes,
well,
absolutely.
Cal, I think that's what you're probably doing. And thank you for joining us on GB News. Thank you. Now, of course, Newcastle United is, well, it's very close, I think, in this part of the world to being something of a religion. And yet, those worlds of sport, politics, and increasingly in Premier League football, big money, they're constantly colliding. Well, I thought somebody that might be quite a good idea to get along to speak to us this evening is that Newcastle United legend, the 5th highest goal scorer for the club of all time, possibly the fastest attacking footballer there's ever been in the game. It is, of course, Super Mac, Malcolm McDonald. Welcome to the show. Well, you know what? It was a few years ago, but they still love you.
Yes, they've got long memories here, thank heavens.
Well, you had a great time, didn't you, here at this club? But I was chatting to you in the green room earlier about how quick you were on the field. I mean, you know, you were known for that burst of pace. And I asked you earlier whether you'd ever been a sprinter. Tell us the story.
Yes. At school, I used to win the sprints, and so somebody suggested that I go join an athletics club, and I went to South London and joined Hernhill Harriers. And the coaches there, they work brilliantly with young people, and they get your style. Later on, when I was at I was doing Superstars.
Which was brilliant.
It was a wonderful programme to take part in. It really was. And I met some wonderful, great people. But Ron Pickering was one of the commentators, great athletics coach. And I remember winning the winning the sprint there in Malmö, and I ran 10.4 for the 100 metres, and at the end he signalled me to go up to the commentary position up in the stand, and I went up, and he said, incredible time. He said, you realise you've just run 10.4. I said, oh, no, I didn't realise. And the world record at the time was 9.9, so it's just half a second. And he said, and if I were your trainer, if I were coaching you and training you, he said, I take half a second minimum off everybody. He said, so you probably break the world record. But then you're a professional, so I don't want to know.
Yeah,
it was all amateur and
was amateur.
professional.
Well, athletics' loss was football's gain. But when you were here playing for Newcastle in the 70s, they were tough times, weren't they?
Well, they were, and not so much in football, but generally, because it became the 3-day week, and it really hit the northeast severely, and so people found it difficult to be able to afford to go and see football. The gate slumped and what have you. And so, yeah, life, it was very difficult for everybody. I had opened a business, and we tried to stay open 6 days a week, and we for 3 days of the week we had to put gas lighting in, you know, the portable gas lighters and what have you.
No, they were
and people would come back with a pair of trousers saying, they're blue, I thought they were black.
No, they were tough times. Now, the club, having quite a good season in the Premier League this
They're having
year.
a brilliant season.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody is so enjoying it, I think, because we've had a very, very tough 14 years under Mike Ashley, who pretty much asset stripped in a number of ways.
Strong words.
Yes, but that was the case, sadly, I think.
But Malcolm...
And now we're
Malcolm,
just seeing a little bit of investment, and
we're seeing investment.
All things can happen.
No, I understand that fully. The Saudi Arabians have an awful lot of money. And they're getting into boxing, and they're getting into snooker, they're getting into golf, and they've bought this football club. Is that the right thing for Newcastle?
I think if you ask around, everybody would say yes, because would you rather the Saudis who are there now or Mike Ashley? And I think everybody would agree that it would be the Saudis.
Is Malcolm right about that? Hands up who thinks Malcolm's right about that. And hands up who thinks he's wrong. Now you've got a big majority. No.
OK.
But it's just, you know, we always get this, don't we? You know, the human rights record in Saudi Arabia, all of these things. There's a bidding war going on across in Manchester right now between the Qataris and Jim Ratcliffe. All I'm saying to you, Malcolm, is, you know, in the end, doesn't the English Premier League need to keep some sense of Englishness?
Yes, but it's very difficult to do because it's become such a money-orientated business now. As to what it was before it was the Premier League. For example, the Glazers at Manchester United, they bought Manchester United some years back, and it was for less than 800 million. They're now talking, just a few years later, of it being sold for 6 billion.
I know.
It's a colossal increase, and so what we have is the Premier League is bringing in massive financial players from all around the world, and of course the amount of advertising that is there to be had is quite incredible. I asked a friend of mine, a guy I know quite well. He's a big Newcastle fan. He's got an advertising agency. And I said, can you just roughly tell me how much it would cost a year for Mike Ashley to have all the Sports Direct advertising? And he said, he said, with all the minutes that there are on television, he said he's probably getting about £1 billion a year in advertising. You know, so no No wonder he wanted to get in on the
I
act.
get it. I get
in
it.
the Premier Division.
I get it. Well, thank you for your comments. And can you just imagine what you'd be paid these days?
Yes, and also I wouldn't be paying 92.5% tax.
Malcolm McDonald, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Nigel.
In a moment, Farage the Farage, but first, we take a break.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
OK, it's time for Farage to Farage. 5 people are going to ask me questions. All I know are their Christian names. I've no idea what they're going to ask. Take it away, Charles.
Do you think it's time that small businesses are helped, not hindered by all the regulations and taxes?
Charles, there are 5.5 million people, men and women, running little businesses, some with limited companies, some as sole traders. From the 1st of April this year, they are going to be faced with no change to IR35 rules. For those that pay themselves dividend, their taxes will go up. Nobody on either front bench understands anything about small business. All the influences on them come from the big global corporates. I've run small businesses myself. I actually think that our small business folk are now some of the most put upon people. The point about Brexit was to make life easier for small businesses by getting rid of excessive regulation. Charles, I'm really angry about it.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah, I am.
Do you feel either party represents you?
No, nobody does. It's sort of regulations are the worst part of it, I think.
I read a thing the other day that, you know, the average small business, the man or woman running that small company will spend 25% of their week just dealing with bureaucracy. No, Charles, I'm with you, and we as a channel want to be champions of small business.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. Susan.
Hi, Nigel.
Good evening.
Do people who come to this country get the same benefits as people born in this country? If so, why and who implemented this policy?
Well, we have a welfare state that is non-contributory. That's part of the problem. But I think what you're putting your finger on, Susan, is a feeling in the country that you can just come in here as a fit young male. You can get not just healthcare, but dental care. I mean, who can get an NHS dentist, you know? You get dental care, accommodation, help of all kinds. A couple of years down the line, you might get rights of family reunion, when a lot of people here feel that, frankly, they're not getting looked after particularly well. I mean, in fact, in many cases, I joked about dentists, but they can't even get a GP appointment. So I think there is a sense of unfairness. And I think that sense of unfairness isn't just shared by those that have lived here for generations. A lot of people whose families have come legally to Britain. If you want to come as a legal immigrant now, it's time-consuming, there's a test to pass, it costs money. Now, I think that's right. I think coming to live in this country and ultimately getting a British passport should be a prize. There should be a cost attached to it. But if you come here legally and you see down the street people who've come here illegally with the same rights as you, you're going to be angry too. So this is about what is fair and proper. And yet, if you dare raise your voice in public and say this, they'll shout you down and call you nasty names. I mean, is that roughly your take on it, or do you see it differently to me?
Yeah, it's definitely the take on. You don't say anything anymore. You don't ask. You don't ask.
No.
I just wonder who implemented this policy, because somebody must have said, we give everybody a...
Oh, successive politicians. And one of the people, of course, who's been so pro all of this is Keir Starmer, who may well become our next Prime Minister. And even though I'm not very happy with the Conservatives, I can't see much progress under Labour. But there we are. Susan, thank you very much indeed. Let's go on to Norman. Norman, hello.
Good evening, Nigel. Does the defeat on yesterday's vote signal the start of the Remainers' plot to take us back into the EU?
Well, the Remainers' plot started at about 3 o'clock in the morning on the 24th of June 2016, because they never accepted the result. You know, how dare you, you dreadful unwashed peasants, do things that are different to the way that we think. But, I mean, you remember that all of us that voted Brexit, we were all knuckle-dragger, Neanderthals. I mean, the whole thing was absolutely appalling, and successive attempts to stop it happening, to have another referendum, and, you know, and in my case, when I set the Brexit Party up to fight that European election, the North East, top score in the whole country we got was here in the North East. Yeah. And people just saying, we have had enough of this. I worry that basically the globalists are back in charge of the Conservative Party. Back to Charles's question, the influences now on the Conservatives are big business. Big business wants, it doesn't really believe in the nation state. It's not very interested in that kind of thing. So I worry about the direction we're going in. The rebellion was pitifully small. I don't think there's going to be any reversal of our membership of the European Union, no. But I think we're going to fail to take the benefits of it. And I think the more Northern Ireland is tied in to EU rules, the more fearful they'll be of the rest of us breaking away from EU rules. Disappointing, Norman, an 80-seat majority. 11 of those seats that were won here in the North East, and they've done absolutely nothing with it. Disappointing. It won't be reversed, but it may be many years before we feel the full benefits.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you very much indeed, Norman. Let's go to John. John, hello.
Good evening, Nigel. First past the post voting disadvantages the small parties. Do you think the small parties should amalgamate and use their best talent and elect a high-profile leader, and then at the next general election, they...
Subtle as a brick, John, aren't you? But go on. Yeah.
And then at the next general election, they may get enough MPs to get Brexit done properly.
Well, Brexit does need to be done properly, and for me, Brexit is not saying, oh, goodness gracious me, will that judge in Strasbourg let us do what we want to do? That is not taking back control of our borders. There is a momentum. in the country now for a change to the voting system. The first past the post system may well have worked 100 years ago. It's out of date now. It doesn't let people express a much wider range of views. It leaves millions of people just completely unrepresented in Parliament. Keir Starmer's Labour Party at their last party conference voted for proportional representation, or a degree of proportionality. I think we desperately need to update our institutions. We need some proportionality in the voting system. And as for the House of Lords, just being stuffed full of the mates of retiring prime ministers, I think the whole thing is obscene. So I'm all for big modernisation. As and when that happens, well, we'll see what happens then.
Thank you, Nigel.
All right, thank you. And finally, James. Hi.
Hi, Nigel. What's your opinion on Kanzak UK, and do you think this is a good model for the future of Brexit Britain?
Kanzak
UK.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's...
We've got some friends out there around the world.
Yeah, we've got a shared culture, we've got
Yep.
a shared head of
Yep.
state, we've got a shared history, and speak the same language, and I feel like it's more better fit for us than it is the EU.
You see, it's interesting you say that, but I'm actually thinking more broadly than that. You know, yes, of course, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the States to a large extent. There is a very, very strong shared culture, shared history. But actually, I think Kanzak's too narrow. I think there are so many other countries in the world, in the Commonwealth, again, with whom we've got shared history, shared culture. And again, I'm back to what Brexit was about. It was never about being small-minded little Englanders. It was about recognising our place in our unique place in the world. So, look, I'm all for sensible trade deals. I'm not against Kanzak, but I actually think we should be more ambitious. Many parts of the Commonwealth have the fastest growing economies in the world. I'm thinking bigger than just Kanzak. Thank you very much indeed, James. OK, in a moment, it's going to be Talking Pints with Geordie Shore legend Scotty T. That coming up just after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, it's time for Talking Pints. Before I introduce my guest, let's see him in action on reality TV.
My name's Scotty T. I'm 24. I'm a club promoter from the heart of Newcastle. I'm a weapon.
Scotty T! Scotty T, congratulations, you are this year's winner.
Well, here he is, Scotty T. Welcome to Talking Pints.
How are you doing? You all right?
Good. Now,
firstly, can I apologise the way I'm dressed? I literally didn't get the memo. I feel very underdressed.
no, we don't mind one little bit about that. Now, Scotty, the interesting thing is, you know, that you were really good at maths at school. You went to university, didn't you?
I got an A-star on maths and physics A level.
Did you?
Yeah, I know.
And then
These are everyone thinks I'm thick.
No, well, I'm just proving to them that you're not. And you go off to university, and you're working on your degree.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens?
So basically, I'm doing my degree. Very focused. Well, to be honest, I didn't really attend much of university. I was in and out, but I still was I was predicted first. Then I went to Australia, travelling with my friends, and then I got a phone call from someone saying I wanted to be in this TV show. And I was like, nah. And I kept saying no. And to be honest, eventually I said yes. Next thing I know, I'm getting flew back, business class, walked straight into Geordie Shore House. And that was me when I was 21, 22.
And Geordie Shore was kind of ahead, wasn't it? You know, we've had Towie and Made in Chelsea. And
Oh, yeah, no,
you were ahead
nothing.
you were ahead of all of that lot, and it had been done, of course, in the States. But this programme suddenly just explodes, doesn't it?
It went like ballistic, like literally Australia, like all around Europe, Canada, everything. Like I'd fly to Australia and there'd be like 300 people waiting in the airport for me. It was nuts. And I was like, yeah, what's going on? But like, obviously we're doing series after series after series. Don't get us wrong, it takes a toll on your body. Like, because we're doing club appearances.
Well, I think your lifestyle would take a hell of a toll on the body. Yeah, I mean...
Very much so. Like, it was full on. We were filming for 5 weeks and then like on the drink all the time.
Yeah.
But you know what it is though, like, I look back at it now and I think I had the most fun in 8 years I've ever had.
Funny thing is, looking back at the clips, I mean, that was a very, very edited clip.
Oh, please don't look back at the clips.
But looking back at, you know, TV 10 years ago that you were doing, and, you know, you were outrageous, and that's great, and people watched it, and it was all about the girls and the lifestyle and, the macho man. No. But what's interesting is that kind of television, that kind of culture, just in 10 years, people now frown upon it, don't they?
But you know,
boys aren't supposed to be boys anymore.
No, I think boys will always be boys. And the thing is with Newcastle, that is like the culture of Newcastle. I go to other cities all around the UK, and I think, you know what it is? It's a lot more like, not sort of uptight. But you go to Newcastle, the stag hen do's come here all the time. You can go out any night of the week and have fun. You know what I mean? So why not make a TV show about people who just go out, get drunk, have fun?
Is this the most fun part of the country?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. But growing out in Newcastle, it is definitely the most fun. Yeah, you know what I mean?
But, you know, there is this sort of attack that's coming from all sides trying to stop blokes.
Just jealousy.
Jealousy, is that what it is?
It is, yeah, man.
Is that what it is?
No, they don't want us having loads of fun. And plus, we've got all the nice girls up here. And you know what it is? Everyone's friendly as well. Everyone's so friendly. You know what I mean? We don't get like loads of crime like you do in other places. You know what I mean? It's basically everyone just comes up here, has fun, and leaves.
Look, I agree. This is the friendliest part of the country. There's no question about that, and I agree with that. But so you do this, and from total obscurity, suddenly, as you say, you arrive in Australia, and there are
300 screaming girls at the airport.
Oh, man, I've been on a flight for like 12 hours and I get off the plane and like that, and everyone's like screaming, like, oh my God, like, what's going on?
But you suddenly get that level of fame, right? And you said a moment ago, the lifestyle, booze, maybe some other substances that people shouldn't really tell. Well, I mean...
Not me.
Well, you've had your ups and downs with these things. Is it difficult to be an overnight famous person?
You know what it is?
Young,
It's like
in your early 20s.
So basically, when you get put in a show like that, and then you come out, and you sort of have like a honeymoon period where you get recognised and everything. Everyone knows who you are, and you're like, what? Like, people are coming up in the street. Like, I get people handing us their babies. Like, oh, my kid's like your biggest fan. I'm like, he's 2 years old. You know what I mean? Like, how is that possible? But like, you go everywhere, and then you know what it is. It sort of becomes surreal. But my honeymoon period just happened to last about 6 years.
Yeah.
Like, where you're buzzing off it, and like you're going out all the time, you're loving it, but then eventually, like, it does get too much.
Yeah.
And people don't realise, like, it's like everywhere you go, you can't do anything, you can't do this and that. It's like, I can't just, like, go to a normal festival with my friends and have fun.
No.
I've got to be round the backstage, but then I normally get on the stage and have fun. It's not...
No, listen, I think, but it's happened to you very quickly and very young.
Oh, literally.
That's the point I'm making.
Literally, like, through the roof.
Now, there is this story out there that there is this sort of big reunion, the big Geordie Shore reunion, and if we believe our favourite newspaper, the Daily Mirror...
Favourite.
You have been rowed out of this series because of your party culture. What's the truth?
Well, that isn't the truth at all. In fact, they'll be releasing a statement shortly about that, because what it is they were trying to get me on, and they wasn't good enough what they were offering. They were saying, oh, we'll give you this, 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 and this. And I was like, nah, it's not good enough now. Because and obviously they've already filmed a lot of it. They only wanted us in for 2 episodes, and I was like, you know what it is, it's not worth my time. It's not worth it. So they'll be releasing a statement soon about that, because all of a sudden when I said no, they were like, basically, because I filmed a cooking school with E4.
Yeah, I know.
They're rival channels.
Okay.
So obviously they didn't like that.
Yeah.
And they've obviously seen that. And then all of a sudden they put that I'm axed. I was like, I'm like your most valuable person. Like, why would you ask me? But nah.
You've said no to it. No, fine, I get that. You've set the record straight. Now,
been there, done that, got the T-shirt, basically.
Now, you mentioned, the cooking show you're doing. The other thing, subject to raise, and remember, we are before the watershed here. You're on OnlyFans.
Maybe.
What do you mean, maybe?
I'm just trying to think how many people are subscribing this week.
Tell us about OnlyFans. Come on.
Well, pre-watershed, what can I say?
Do you make loads of money out of it?
Me a canny bit, like. It's basically just expressing my anatomy to people who admire my anatomy. For a lot of money.
For a lot of money? Well, that's fine.
Yeah. People who want to, they just want to enjoy it for a short period of time.
That's fine. I get it. Don't worry. I think you handled it very differently.
I'll send you a link to it.
No, I think you... Well, don't tell anybody, for God's sake.
Not at half price.
I think you've got a bargain deal. No, I think you handled that very diplomatically. But money. You've made loads of money.
Oh, good God, I've spent loads of money as well.
And yet you've got through most of it. What have you done? Where's it all gone?
Oh, mate.
Where's it all gone?
Do you know I spent £1 million in 2 years?
Did you?
What have I got to show for it? You know, I'd say memories, but I can't even remember it.
That's one of the funniest lines I've ever heard. Oh. I mean, let me ask you something. The problems that you've had in the past, you had a few problems with drink and substances. Have you put that stuff behind you now?
Yeah, of course I have. But it was, it was never really a problem. I think, so Geordie Shore hired me because I was this lad, I ran events in Newcastle, I was a party boy, I was good with the women, very good with the women. And obviously they're like, oh, I want this lad on the show, he's going to nail it. So I go on the show, and then a couple of years down the line, they're like, he's too wild, he's too mad with women, he's too this, that. It's like, you hired me for that reason. Like, what else do you want?
Yeah.
And then, oh, he's abusing substances. Like, no, man. It's like, bloody hell. Give it a break. I mean, put it this way. Do I look 34? I might have had no work done.
I think you look pretty. I think you look pretty.
I think I look fantastic.
I think you look pretty smart. You don't look raddled, I've got to tell you. Is it maybe time, at 34, having done all the things you've done, having had the mad times you've had, is it possible that now is the moment that Scotty T grows up?
No, yeah, of course it is. Well, in fact, I actually settled down for 6 months, and then my girlfriend finishes 2 days ago, so I'm single. But yeah, I have grown up. I don't go out as much anymore. I'm very, like, one-track minded with, like, work and stuff like that. Yeah. And obviously I'm doing a lot of television, a lot of other things, maybe a little bit of OnlyFans.
All right, maybe a bit of OnlyFans.
I mean,
and if somebody come up to you, a young lad, young girl came up to you and said, "There's a new reality TV show. Is it a good thing to do?" What would you say?
I'll say, unless it's got me on it, probably not.
Right. I tell you what, the one thing, Scotty T, you are not lacking in is confidence in any way at all. You believe in yourself. To be honest, you've had an amazing level of success. You've had your ups and downs.
Oh, it's only going to go back up as well.
You don't look... Don't worry. And confidence and self-belief.
What about positivity, mate? You know what I mean? If you think bad things are going to happen, they're going to happen. You know what I mean? I get it from all angles, but I don't care what anyone else says. I just do me. You know what I mean? I mean, as long as I'm happy, and I make my mum happy, and my family happy, and my friends, I'll just keep doing it.
On that note, I want to say a huge thank you to you for coming on tour.
No problem, mate.
Very, very good. Indeed. OK. Well, that was great. Now, we've had a great evening here in the friendliest part of the country. We've said that many times, but we believe it to be absolutely true. It's now time for Bell and Sperling. And Martin Bell, it's your birthday today as well. And they're going to give us the latest version of Take It Away with Nigel Says.
Nigel says the budget was a tax job, just like Consules. It was uninspiring, but boring. Jeremy Hunt. We can't sing the next line because it rhymes with Hunt. Gary, Lineker. Keep your views to yourself. It's not what we are paying you for. Oxfam banning words, they have hit some lows. It's the last time I go in their shop and buy their rubbish clothes. Nigel says
a Brexit pub guarantee.
Nigel says
giving money to China. I mean, the whole thing's crackers.
Nigel says
he's going to get wiped out at the next general election.
Nigel Farage.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. Tomorrow will be pretty similar to today. Some sunshine, plenty of showers blown along by gusty winds being created by a big area of low pressure out to the west. We do have this waving weather fronts covering the southeast through this evening, making for a pretty soggy end to Thursday. Outbreaks of rain slowly clearing away from East Anglia and the southeast, but lingering until around midnight across parts of Norfolk. Following on from that, you can see the low here and lots of showers piling in, certainly for Scotland, Northern Ireland, North Wales and North West England. Further south, it should become a little drier through the nights, not especially cold. We start Friday at 6s and 7s. We also should start with quite a bit of sunshine over the Midlands, Eastern England and parts of the south, but the showers will develop. Plenty of showers across southern Scotland early on, and you can see the showers breaking out by mid to late morning pretty extensively. So nowhere immune. Where we see the showers, they'll be heavy, perhaps even turn into thunderstorms. They should tend to zip through on a brisk breeze and between the showers, but a sunshine, seeing temperatures again climbing into the teens. The wind's a little lighter over central Scotland, which means the showers here could be quite slow moving. And through the evening, lots of showers packing into Northern Ireland. Pretty wet end to the day here, and that wetter weather sweeping into southern Scotland during the evening as well. And that leads into a showery day again on Saturday. Perhaps not as many showers across parts of the south, but a chance of seeing longer dry spells. And the far north also turning a little drier, but parts of southeast Scotland, northeast England, again seeing lots of showers through the day.
Again, quite mild but quite windy in the south, but it's starting to turn a little colder. These northerly winds picking up across northern Scotland, bringing a chillier feel, and those northerly winds will spread further south as we go through the weekend, so that by Sunday it is much colder everywhere. Goodbye.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app, and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans.